where we are in the journey with AI. How fast is it moving and how fast do we need to get on page with it?
When we talk about AI isn't a thing. It's not one thing. It is many different technologies and tool sets that fall underneath an umbrella.
Could it take my job, Andy?
Well, I think that
the potential of AI to really help you enhance your social impact. What's your thoughts on that one? Welcome to episode 3 of The Life of a Business Leader. I'm delighted to be joined by Andy Delaney. I'll introduce him in a moment, but today we are talking about AI, artificial intelligence, the 9 questions that business leaders need to be asking themselves right now in the moment. So I know this is going to be a great session. It's very timely, and the goal with The Life of a Business Leader is to bring you practical golden nuggets, insights, and AI is right in the moment. It's topical. It's right on the agenda of every business leader. So hopefully what Andy and I are going to do over the course of the next 45 minutes, no pressure, Andy, is we're going to unpack AI, give you some practical insights and also a roadmap for how you need to be thinking about what AI really means for your business. So we have created 9 questions. Andy has no idea what these questions are that are coming his way. You know, with The Life of the Business Leader, I like it to be raw, upfront, and just really natural and authentic. So we've distilled this session into 9 questions that I think will give some structure and context to the conversation. So Andy, welcome. Great to have you on as a guest on The Life of a Business Leader.
Great to be here. Always energetic.
Andy,
looking forward to it.
No, it's going to be a great session. I looked at your LinkedIn profile, and this is going to put you on the spot now. And it says promoting positive adoption of AI in the workplace. So no pressure. You are an AI guru with all the knowledge and expertise. So let's dive in. I want to give our listeners a practical roadmap for thinking about AI. And I'm privileged that I sit on the board of a technology, memory and storage business in the UK. So I've had a lot of exposure to Kingston, Micron, Samsung talking about the implications of AI on computing, on data storages. But even for my business, I'm still a little bit like rabbit in headlights thinking about what are the real implications of AI, both now and in the future, and how do we stay relevant? So I'm sure I'm not the only business leader who's having those thoughts. So my opening question for you is, what's the fuss all about? You know, people talk about it being the biggest revolution since WWW, the World Wide Web. Mm-hmm. Is that fad or future? Is AI friend or foe? Let's start off with a kind of top level question.
Okay, well, I think it's great that somebody's reading my LinkedIn profile. That's great. so that works. So I think just picking up on that piece, I think that's a really interesting piece to start on, because the reason that focus on positivity in the adoption cycle is that AI has kind of brought with it an element of negativity and bias that people have. After having 20 years, 30 years of Hollywood, focusing on Terminator and robots taking over the world, as we move into a society where AI is actually a usable commodity, that actually it doesn't always have to be led by negativity. So I think there's an element there which is actually just trying to say there's technologies, tools, capabilities here that we can deploy in a positive way that will have a positive impact on your business and your people. So fundamentally, that's what that is about, is trying to adjust the level playing field that people are coming to the table with and saying, actually, let's see how we can use this for good, as opposed to the bias that maybe is in your mind. So
are you advocating, Andy, that it's not a fad then? Are you absolutely clear that this is the future, and it's, you've got to get on page with this and get on the front foot with it? Is that the opening message that's really important for our listeners?
Absolutely, 100%, but it's not binary and it's not black and white. So it's not just a switch that's been turned on and go, right, here we are today, get on with it, in the same way that when the computer was invented, the vast majority of people didn't know what to do with a computer. But we look at today's society, take computers out of it, and the world would be a very different place. Mobile phones, same concept. We didn't know the impact that it would have on us as a workplace, as a society as whole, that happens through iteration and evolution. But the
Yeah.
fundamental aspect of it becoming a socially enabled commodity is here and real. It is that that swing, that pivot has happened. The genie is out the bottle in essence. AI is now available in many different forms, and it's now how we embrace that and look at that and utilize that in our businesses.
I think that's a great way of kind of closing off that first question. Then, in summary, the genie's out the bottle.
Mm-hmm.
In what form that takes, I guess, is that where we can go deeper in our conversation now. So, if the genie's out the bottle, question two: how fast is it moving? What's the rate of adoption? Is when AI first came on the scene with Chat GPT, and it was going to be, we need to change literally overnight, but that hasn't quite played out in reality, has it? So I guess my question for you is where we are in the journey with AI. How fast is it moving, and how fast do we need to get on page with it?
So I think there's a number of elements to that. The first thing is that when we talk about AI isn't a thing. It's not one thing. It is many different technologies and tool sets that fall underneath an umbrella of an umbrella term of AI. So how we use those and how we adopt those is very different depending on the use cases and different types of working environments we are in. And the rate of adoption is very different. So our perception is led by what we see on a daily basis. So if you're a content creator, you're seeing that your industry is being disrupted massively, and so the rate of adoption is significant. Whereas if you're perhaps a CEO of a fintech company, you may not be seeing that initial adoption curve. So I think it just depends on what industry you're in, what exposure you have to different existing software or social channels that you engage with. But I think going back to the opening part of that is how fast is this? Is it a thing? It's a juggernaut. It is
Yeah,
rapidly moving to the extent that when you look at the significant players in the technology market, the Googles, the Amazons, the Facebooks, they are scrambling with big money to be ahead of the curve. And anybody who's not ahead of the curve in their space has already lost.
yeah,
It
yeah.
is
I totally get that.
significant. And we're not just talking they're putting a few £1 million in. What Microsoft and OpenAI are looking to do is $100 billion into a supercomputer. Just
Yeah,
that is just insane amounts of money. That's they're not. It's not being taken lightly. It's not like where Meta or Facebook previously spent a few $1 million on research and development, developing the next VR headset or developing the metaverse. That was a bit of a gamble. But this one, it's if they don't put their money in, then they are rapidly going backwards.
and Andy, I totally get that. And going back to the conversation where I started, sitting on the board of Sims, a distribution business for memory and storage, Micron Kingston, they're pumping billions of dollars into it
Mm-hmm.
in terms of, because the one thing with AI is that it requires a lot of more memory and storage, both in your
For sure.
computer, in your phone, in the data centers, everywhere. So, that's the starting point. So I see it because I'm right at the front end of that kind of memory and storage capacity
Yeah.
that is the enabler to do everything that ultimately will happen with AI.
Yeah, and
But
take
Andy, let's
another example, similar kind of thing, but take another example of Nvidia. Nvidia for 20, 30 years has been a gaming company that's developed graphics cards for computers. And in the last 18 months, their share price has gone from a relatively normal level of share price to 500-fold because they are the leading graphics card provider for AI hardware.
yeah.
And the value of that company has just gone through the roof. So absolutely, I think that there's from an infrastructure perspective, there's many components now that are going, okay, how can we capitalize on this?
Okay, so Andy, we know the genie's out the box. We know that it's fast moving and the curve of adoption will be different. So, for example, you
Yeah,
talked about there, if you're in content creation, you will be really feeling it early on, versus other businesses might not have been on the crest of that wave yet. How does a business leader, how does a business, this is my question three, how do they assess the potential for their business, but also the impact for their business. How can they get ahead of the curve? Not necessarily in terms of the adoption today, but understanding that curve that's coming their way, the juggernaut, as you use the descriptor. How can they get on the front foot with understanding what it means for their business? How deep should they go? And how can they start to create a bit of a roadmap of what that might look like? Because that's the bit of it that I think is like the rabbit in the headlights for a lot of business leaders.
Yeah. So I think, so first of all, I think it's as basic as it sounds, it's having a conversation, bringing it to the table, because a lot of organizations aren't even bringing it to the table. So bringing it to the top table, excuse me, or even setting working groups internally in the company. And I would look at it. You've spoken previously about something called the 10th man strategy, and I would treat it in a similar vein to that, in the sense that this is how we do business today.
Yeah.
Our fundamental business model is XYZ in whatever industry you're in. Now, pose the question, what if? How can we challenge what we do with the open-ended technology tool set that actually this can pretty much do anything if you train it to do? So I would really challenge what we do as an organization on a day-to-day basis. Let me give an example, so to put some context in there. If I'm a financial services or an administrative-based organization, so in Jersey, there's a number of those. The vast majority of their operating model is based on people.
Yeah.
Okay. So, 50, 60, 70% of their operating costs will come from people. So, obviously there's an area there to look at. How can we make our teams more efficient and more productive, because we can try and generate more productivity out of the people that we have. We're in a difficult market. We can't employ people. We're in a cost crisis, so we can't really raise costs. However, what we can do is introduce additional productivity into that workload. So what can we do to automate tasks? What can we do to help smooth processes and policies and procedures that we deliver that are time onerous? Then the flip side of that is that, okay, there may be some casualties along the way. It might be that we reduce our headcount because we've increased our productivity. But that doesn't mean we need to get rid of people. What we can do is flip those people, retrain those people on maybe other parts of the business that we could actually capitalize on. So maybe we could take some of those people and retrain them and have them as customer service agents, or we could have them as frontline people, or we could have them as other roles. A similar model to what IKEA have. IKEA have done exactly this. They took our 8,500 people and retrained them. They were sat on the customer support desk dealing with negative calls every day, trying to fix IKEA, people phoning them up going, I can't put my wardrobe together. So they retrained those and redeployed them as frontline interior decorators or interior designers. So they completely changed their day-to-day activities. They replaced elements of what they did with an automated virtual assistant. That improved engagement for the customers. They had a much smoother process when they were coming in to try and resolve their issues. Those staff got retrained and actually added 1.5 billion euros onto the bottom line of IKEA's operating model without a net zero cost, really. So I think it's just challenging the business model and actually just having that conversation saying, how could we do something differently? Now, not saying you can do that overnight, but at least start having that conversation.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is then that as a business leader, if it's not on your monthly board meetings or it's not on your strategy agenda, it needs to be a specific item on there that is given the time that it deserves to really debate and think about the impact now and in the future. And then the second thing is, which is a really interesting. Yeah.
Okay.
And then the second thing you mentioned there, which is really interesting, and it aligns to a question I talk about all the time, and you've just triggered me with it, that how will our industry or our sector or our business need to operate in 5-10 years time to be relevant for our customers and clients? And it's kind of taken AI as a key thesis within that kind of question to really start to debate and almost future-proof the business. Is that a fair summary?
Yeah, I think that longevity and sustainability in any business is obviously a key component, but with the introduction of new technologies such as AI, that really challenges how you're going to be sustainable and how you're still going to have a business. Because if you put your head in the sand and bury yourself and go, you know what, I'll worry about AI or how it's impacting me next year, Your competitor won't. Your competitor is
Yeah.
already doing something. So if you're
Yeah.
in an industry where having a competitor is a key component, then you're already behind the curve, let alone the fact that you're doing or anything or not. If you're not doing something, then they are, or at least they're having a conversation. Um, so I think that we don't know what next year will look like as far as the available tool sets and technologies. We don't know what 3 years will look like or 5 years will look like. But it's going back to the example of the computer or the mobile phone or the car, then these are all evolutionary components and they're all iterative. So the key thing is to do something.
Yeah.
Yeah, however basic that is, do something. Make it an agenda point. And that could just be, let's just do a low hanging fruit proof of concept of something, right? Let's work on a virtual chatbot for our website, our external facing website. Let's work on maybe doing some research and development through a large language model interface on some existing documentation we've done. Let's explore how we could maybe do a digital twin for customer service engagement, or let's work on a Q&A for our web. There's lots of areas you can do as kind of proof of concepts.
Yeah. I like
And
that.
what that does is it just kind of sharpens the pencil as far as getting the attention of maybe the senior leaders in the business to go, okay, we don't know what the answer is. We don't know how we're going to apply it, but at least we know we've got the capability and understanding to start in the right direction.
So maybe identify 2 or 3 areas which might be low hanging fruit, which might be quick wins, but allows you to get some traction and forward momentum and start to really explore what it might look like. Because momentum's, as you and I have always talked about, momentum's a powerful force when it's working
Mhm.
for you. The hardest bit in life is getting started, isn't it? So what I'm liking about this conversation is it's hopefully for our listener, it's really practical and they're thinking, okay, what are the areas? And I guess marketing's a big area, isn't it? I'm seeing a lot of marketing in terms of, white papers, blueprint reports, that kind of stuff. AI is really good for that front end marketing, isn't it? Which is where you can get early adoption as well.
Yeah, I think that um, marketing is key. And I think there's a lot of support that the AI umbrella can give in marketing as far as simplification or automation in that space. I think there's I guess going back to the key area of where do you start, right? So there's low hanging fruit. We can do some little proof of concept pieces. But for me, fundamentally, there's one area that you start above all others, and that is people first, right?
Okay.
So we don't know the answers. We don't know how we're going to we don't know where we're going. We don't know how we're going to get there, but we know that the train is on tracks and it is going in a certain direction. So for me, where I would start is getting people in a room, and I would start empowering those people with knowledge, with examples, with education around AI as an umbrella term and as an umbrella technology and toolset. Because that way, what you can do is then unlock and tap into the creativity of your team, the people who are actually doing what your business does on a day-to-day basis, and take that and then blend that and augment that with the skills that they have and the new skills that they can acquire, and think, how can we do what we do better?
Yeah.
So whilst you're trying to work out what it is or what your USP might be as far as an AI adoption roadmap, start skilling up your team, start skilling up the people, start passing the knowledge on. Run weekly kind of lunch and learns in organizations, get somebody to talk to a group of people around, this is what AI is. This is, here's some examples in marketing, here's some examples in sales, here's some examples in finance.
Yeah.
Just impart that knowledge, and by imparting that knowledge you empower your team, and your team will then become the creatives internally that you need them to be, because they're the ones fundamentally who have a real finger on the pulse about what they do and how they do it. And by
Yeah.
empowering them and augmenting them with skills, you're actually going to enable them to be better. So that's a
So
win-win.
working groups are a good thing.
Hmm.
So getting a working group set up. That leads me to my fourth question, Andy, that I think needs answering. That have a working group, love that concept. They work really well in organizations for service experience for different things, and I can see it absolutely working for AI. Who should lead on AI? is it something that sits with, if you've got an IT, either internally, you've got an IT department, should it sit with them? If you've got an outsourced IT partner, should it sit with them, or should it sit with somebody else in the organization? What's your view in terms of who you're seeing? Because at the end of the day, there needs to be a sponsor or a program lead or somebody who is owning it, or else it's a definition of insanity and it just gets lost. Who are you seeing being the key lead in this? Where should it sit in terms of priority?
So I think it depends on the size of the business, because like anything, depending on the size of the business, you'll have different roles for different things.
Yeah,
So, I think that this sits at an operating model level. So if you've got an organization that has a COO then, or an operations manager, then I would see this as an operating aspect, and that ties very closely. So I'm not seeing it as a technology-led IT piece, because
why
IT
not?
because IT is is led by, we've got this technology to do this thing. Here you go. It's not driven by operational change or strategic change within the business. So it's a tactical
Got
piece
it.
that I've got this tool to do that job. Whereas what AI is trying to do, yes, there are technical elements and there are technical tools. So you will be adopting certain tools that have been developed to do it, but they're all underpinned by a strategical approach as to why you're trying to do this thing. So if you're trying to improve productivity and efficiency, that will be linked back to your metrics in your business. You'll be understanding from a finance perspective, from an operating model, from a 3-year business plan, all of these components. So it needs to be sat at a level that actually can dictate that strategy out to the business, and then the relevant teams can then look to see how they can adopt and meet those. So I don't see it as a technology-led piece. Now, that's not to say that the IT teams in the business don't have a say, and clearly they will come to the table with the various
Yeah,
options. And part of that is that also that tools change very quickly. So what you see today may be absorbed feature-wise into another product in 3 months' time. We spent last year building something over a period of 9 months to essentially work as a virtual agent in a medtech environment, and it spent probably close to about 9 months building this thing. And there was about 12 different components, and it was take some data from here, blend it with this data, read to this large language model, build this prompt, do this, etc., etc., etc. And by the end of the 9 months, it was something that was actually available as a custom GPT in OpenAI's Chat GPT models. You're like, okay,
yeah,
well, that's great. We learned some great stuff, and it was brilliant. But actually, you get to a point where what you've built's just become natively available in something else for
yeah. It's
little to no cost,
commoditized.
right?
Yeah,
So if you come at it purely from a technological perspective, you're going to be kind of behind the curve before you've even started. You need to be fundamentally understanding what you're trying to do, how you're trying to do it, and then find the right tool for that at the right time. It's like the analogy with F1 is that always be on the right tires at the right time. So I think tools will change, and just make sure that actually that constant is always changing.
no, like that. So I think that's a really important distinction, though. Don't have it. It's got to be led from the commercial, business, operational side of the business, not from the IT. I like that
Yeah.
delineation and distinction, and I think that's a key takeaway that people take away from this podcast today. I think that's a really important point. Disruptive question number 5 for you.
Okay.
Could it take my job, Andy? Could AI steal Royston Guest's relevance in terms of what I do? And for other business leaders, is there a fear that actually AI could take a business leader's job?
Well, I think that when we look at business leaders, business leaders don't have one job. Business leaders have lots of jobs, and they do lots of things. So, take yourself as an example. You have, a very successful speaking conference career. You have a successful education program. You have a successful online business. You have your podcast. There's lots of things you do. You do one-on-ones, you do them face-to-face, you do them online, you do them virtual. So this isn't it's going to come in and take your job. What we're
Yeah,
looking to see here is, how can we augment this into your job, right, in what you do? How can we do give you back time to do more of what you do. So, for example, we can take, Royston's coaching and mentoring package that you do online, through, one of your online platforms, and actually we could pull all that into a virtual package, put that into a virtual agent, and develop it into a closed loop app on a phone that people can have Royston in their pocket, right? So at any point, 24/7,
That's a scary thought.
they can engage with you on a chat basis as if it's you, and it's got the tonality, the personality, the intricacies, the knowledge that you have, but actually available to that person. And so you could charge a subscription model of, £10 a month per person to have it on top of their existing engagement with you, where there's still value to do that. But actually, if someone's at 8 o'clock at night, think, I could really do with that little soundbite from Royston about how I should do X, Y, Z, they could just do that in the app and it would bring an answer back to them. So I think it's how can we augment the technology and tools into what you do to give you more bandwidth to do what you do, and also enlighten the experience for the person on the other end, and adopting it in new ways. And I think that applies across all sorts of different leaders, what they do and how they do it.
That's a really great
so
point.
example, so quarterly updates from a CEO of a fintech company or an operation COO. Every quarter they may do an update. They may get in front of a screen and kind of do a Teams call with everybody. But actually, we could element of that we can automate through an AI digital twin. So we could get that person into the recording studio, record them for 2 or 3 minutes, create a digital twin of them, and then automate the quarterly update out as a digital twin. And the messaging still gets there, and every 6 months, once a year, they can do a proper live, but actually to save time and to save, make their time, because their time's valuable, that we could just introduce technology to help their productivity and efficiency, even at the upper levels.
And I guess that's great, particularly if you're running a matrix structure or you've got teams that are in different geographical locations. That kind of thing would add a lot of value because, number one, it's helping you from a productivity perspective, not have to be on planes, trains, and also it's feeding your ESG, isn't it? Your social as well, about your social contribution to society by reducing stuff as well. So there's lots of benefits in that. I can see that. Now, you're leading into question 6 for me, which is about, what would success look like? And I think this is where the rubber meets the road, using your metaphor of tires. Are you an advocate of, find 3 things, create a 90-day roadmap? If I said to you the principle of fail fast and cheap and test stuff, how does all that wrap together in kind of starting to define what success looks like and creating a kind of AI roadmap?
Yeah, I think that I like the analogy of kind of develop quick, fail fast, move on, get on to the next thing. I think that especially in this space, it's there's elements of that, because actually doing something is showing that you're learning and you're embracing the tools. So yeah, have a go, right? So, and that doesn't need to be a corporate wide thing. That could be like a little working group, have a go. Just get people to come in with concepts and ideas.
Yeah.
But that said, what I would do is I would look at your overall business strategic goals of what you're trying to do over the next quarter and see how can we align something to this. So if you're, I don't know, let's say your quarter this year is to, increase revenue by 5%. We want to drive productivity. We want to develop a new product. We want to find a new way of engaging. We want to maybe increase or decrease our turnaround times on proposals, whatever it might be. Try and find something that aligns to some of your goals that you've set as a business, and actually see how you can demonstrate some value against those. So, one of the things we did Q3 last year was we understood that when we were doing tenders were really time absorbing, right? So they take a long time to fill in. There's lots of questions, lots of information. They've got to be in certain formats, yada, 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 right? So, and doing a tender can take days and days and days and huge amounts of
Yeah.
time for lots of people. So what we
Yeah.
did, we said, okay, you know what? Let's all get everybody on a call. We'll talk about what the tender is. So we thought, how can we streamline that process and make it more efficient? So we had a go. So we said, okay, well, look, what we'll do, we'll get everybody on a call that are working internally on this thing, and we'll talk about it and we'll challenge our questions, and then we'll take that transcript and we'll automatically use that transcript to populate the tender document, because we had structured our conversation around the tender document. So we utilized that. So that took us 70% of the way. Then we were able to just top and tail the document to suit. What we then did was we took that document and challenged our responses by saying things like, we've created this submission for this tender. I'm taking on the role as the person reviewing the tender internally in the customer. Can you tell me the top 5 pertinent points and the 5 weakest points? And we would challenge it from different perspectives. So we were able to get to a point that when we submitted it, we'd actually almost kind of preempted a lot of the questions and challenges that the person would have done from the other end. So
Yeah.
when
Nice.
you look at, things like proposals, they take businesses a long time, quotations, that whole sales cycle, how can you improve it from beginning to end? Minutes in a business. So, using some of the tools and capabilities that are there now, whenever you do a recording like this one today, or you've got an internal meeting, record it, use the tools that are available, and then you can automatically create summaries and you can share those summaries with other people. It will create action points automatically. This saves other people time having to write up their own notes.
Yeah. No. But Andy, you're throwing out here, got practical golden nuggets of how you do it. I mean, have you created a list? I mean, you're in this AI world. Have you created a list of the top 100 ideas of how you can use AI? Or, why doesn't somebody set up a WhatsApp group where people join and they share all their best practices? Because this is what people need. You're rolling off these examples, and I had one the other day where a client needed an environmental policy and they didn't have one written. They went into AI and put it into ChatGPT or wherever they did, and it came up with an environmental policy that was literally 80% where it needed to be,
Yeah.
and they just needed to up and tail it. But if you were starting with a blank canvas, how long would it take you to research and write an environmental policy? So I absolutely see those as being key areas where you can get quick wins. And I just think, how do we get those ideas and get like a checklist or those lists in the hands of business leaders, just so they start to get the muscle memory and start thinking about the practical application of AI to the business world? Because I think there's still a gap.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of part with Ask Holly. What we're trying to do is see how we can bridge that gap. So, for us, it's around how can we take that positive reinforcement into the workplace, and do that via going into businesses and saying to them, here's the information that you need, right? So we're not walking in. So the definite difference between what we're trying to do as a business and what maybe some other organizations are doing is that we're not walking in there from a sales perspective going, you should buy our tool, you should buy this organization's licenses, right? What we're doing is just imparting knowledge with people so that they can be creative in what they do, because there are some tools out there that are free, there are some tools out there that will cost lots of money, but again,
Yeah.
if they're not triggered back to levers in your business, then actually, if you take, for example, Microsoft, massive platform, the vast majority of people in our location use that. To deploy Microsoft Copilot across your organization, if you're a large organization, is a huge sum of money. And you
Yeah.
can clearly see there'll be productivity and efficiency benefits. But don't just do that as well, of course we're going to do it. Do it as a very tactical and strategical approach around making sure that we're doing it for the right reasons, and that will come from actually people being educated and having knowledge around why they use these tools, how they can use them, how they should use them, how they shouldn't use them, what information should you not put up into these online, publicly available tools. What are the
Yeah.
guardrails? What are the ethics? Things that actually, if I just give you access to a tool today, so we've all gone into OpenAI's ChatGPT and gone and played with it and done something with it, but we've done it with no boundaries, right? So we've not gone in there and thought, actually, ethically is what I'm doing right? Am I asking questions that are good, bad, or indifferent? Am I putting up documents into here to, I don't know, if I'm using a company proposal template because I want to use it to help write a document, well, where's that template going to go? If I
Yeah.
refer to a client in an engagement, so if I go into ChatGPT and go, I'm working with, XYZ bank, and I'm talking to Bob, and I'm putting a proposal. Think from a GDPR perspective, from a governance perspective, what information are you sharing? So there's lots of conversations around the edges that people need to have, just so that they're actually moving forward with these technologies with the right mindset, positive mindset, and not the negative biases they have, but also with a view of being able to get the best out of them.
Yeah. I know this, and maybe a simple thing in terms of what does success look like is if somebody went off this podcast, having listened to it, and went to all their colleagues in their business and said, right, you've got 5 days. I want you to come up with 7 ways that you could use AI in your role. And if you just did that and you had 10 people in your business, straight away you've got 70 ideas.
Do you know what though, right? So you can do that from a human perspective. So here's an alternative to that, right? Take your job description, put it into
Yeah,
ChatGPT, and say, provide me 10 ways I can use AI to enhance what I do on a daily basis. 30 seconds
great
later, it'll
idea.
give you 10 ways, right? And
Brilliant.
then
Love
you can
it.
take your list and go to your working group and go, right, do these have any validity?
Great. That's a golden nugget idea. Take your role profile or your job description, stick it into AI, and it'll give you 10 ideas. Brilliant. And I guess that's the kind of thing that you need to do just to start stimulate thinking. And success in life is mindset first. It's get the knowledge, and then the tools is further down the line, which is why I like
Totally.
your approach of how do you, because this has got to be embedded in your culture, doesn't it? AI has got to be so intrinsically aligned, just like the customer is the center of your culture and people are. AI has got to become part of just how you start to think, feel, and act, and where you're looking for those productivity gains that you can drive in your business. Andy, I'm
Yeah.
conscious that we've got 10 minutes and I've got 3 more questions I want to do. So I'm gonna push you on to the next question because these are really important questions and I don't want to miss these.
Okay.
Question 7. And this aligns to a watch out for me. Because how do businesses make sure that they preserve their personality and their authenticity? And by that, I mean, as a really simple example, I know that there's a lot of people who are going into ChatGPT, looking for a white paper on something, and then literally just regurgitating that and sending it out. And you can see when something has just purely come through a AI robot ChatGPT versus when it's got the human element on it. So is that a watch out that business leaders need to be cognizant of or thinking about in terms of balancing the adoption of AI with being a trust brand, with personality, with authenticity? What's your view on that?
So I think that there's a key element to that is that we are human. So there are human traits that we have that AI at this moment in time doesn't have. Um, that said, that's changing quite rapidly. So I would say that we all fall back onto our human traits. Our face-to-face skills, capabilities, engaging with people is something that is a human interaction. I would, to a certain extent, I would raise a challenge to say, does it matter? Yeah, it depends on your business. Does it matter that some of the tasks aren't human or empathetic, as long as they do what they're meant to do? So, for example, if we take, a car manufacturing plant, back in the 100 years ago, there was lots of people on the front line manually handling parts and building parts for the Ford motor car. That's got stripped down to automation, and now you've got big clever robots in the back end that are going, and building cars and spitting a car out. Does it matter that that robot has done that job? Did it need to be a human doing it? So there's a fundamental aspect, going back to how we started the conversation, was your operating model. That's where I would challenge, what can you do aligned to what your levers are in your business? So now that said, we're not all just trying to become, go back to Terminator days. But there's a valid point. There is things that you can do that you don't need humans to do. But the human traits are really important. So there's obviously a face-to-face aspect, and there's people aspects. And interestingly, in the last week, a new large language model, so a similar type thing to ChatGPT, has come out, which is actually empathetic. So it has emotion. It understands the context and tonality in the way that you're talking, and it will respond back in a way that is more in tone with your feelings and have more understanding. So, um, overall, I think that it's very important that we remain human and we augment AI into what we do. However, I would look at what we do and why we do it, and look at what the outcome is best aligned to what we're trying to do as an organization. Maybe a bit
Yeah, no, I like
controversial.
that. I like the word augment there. It's the blend, isn't it, of the two? And I get your point about where it's absolutely, manufacturing background. I guess for me, where there is a challenge is when it's customer consumer facing, and we do want that human connection. And I think the challenge is that in a world that's become really impersonal, people do want sometimes that human connection. So the augmentation and the alignment of the two is really important in understanding where you can just automate and use AI to its benefits, but where still that human connection is really important. And I guess that's the point I was trying to get across in terms of that authenticity and so forth.
I think it's no. I think, don't get me wrong. I think it's vitally important, right? So people are at the heart of all of this, and I think that face-to-face connection, or even making sure that when you're uh, engaging with people, that it has that correct tonality and correct um, messaging piece. Which is why the best way to use these tools is to take you 70% there. If they can take you half the way to 70%, then that's where you can add you, right? That's where you can add the
Right.
human element back into it. I just think there's a case in point as to kind of where and when will depend on how you operate your business.
I like that 70. Maybe we take the Pareto's 80-20 principle and say, in
Absolutely.
certain scenarios, AI will get you 80% of the way there, and 20% is the personality and the human bit that needs to be layered on the top.
Absolutely.
That might give our listeners a good frame of reference for just thinking how they get that
Yep.
augmentation and that balance right. Question 8, Andy. People within the people for a lot of businesses are their enabler to success, and I get the whole thing about the place for AI, but you are going to have a lot of people who are going to be fearful of AI, who are going to have the resistance to change because they fundamentally feel threatened by AI. How do businesses need to manage the whole AI adoption and culturally position it so people start to see it as an opportunity, not a threat?
So I think fundamentally it's education and knowledge sharing, getting people involved in
Okay.
the journey
Yeah.
from day one. I would, if I was in an organization where um, they have the capability to share knowledge. Now, it doesn't just need to be in a working group. So I would actively engage any business to have knowledge sessions, lunch and learns, activities, anything that could just normalize AI into an organization. And that could be inviting people in to talk about the subject. That could be getting, organizations to come in and give some examples. Just get the narrative going. I think that the more we make AI a big thing, the more resistance will come. Whereas get people
No,
involved
I
in the
get great point.
conversation, and then that
Yeah.
way they're part of the journey. And I think a lot of creativity will come from people giving a little bit of knowledge. 3 months later, they'll go, "Oh, I've got an idea. I've got a seed. This is how we can use it." And I think there's elements in that. So some people will come to those sessions, um, and they will come with bias, negative bias around what they know of AI. Others will come there with going, "Well, AI is not going to do anything for my job," or others might come there going, "I can't wait to embrace this." But I think giving the knowledge and just getting people up to a level playing field where everyone has some core understanding and capability, then you can set the seeds and go, right. go have a play. Even if it's a case of, right, here's half a dozen free online resources you can use that will help you generate an image. It will help you generate some content. It will help you generate a video, or it could be that
Yeah.
it will help with your household budgeting. So just some things that empower, because it may not be that they understand how they can use those capabilities in the workplace, but they may go home and go, oh, I'm also, the leader of Brownies, or I run a scout troop, or I run the local gym club. And they may go, oh, I can use it in there. And as soon as you get start people using these things, then they'll a few months later will come back and go, oh, I've used it at, this place. I can now come back and use it in the workplace, so I'm more confident with it and I understand what we could do with it. So, I
Yeah.
think that knowledge and education at the front of it is paramount. And an
Like
interesting
that.
piece around people are fearful of AI taking their jobs. I don't think that's the case. I think people are fearful of AI taking their income. And so I think by augmenting people with AI skills, organizations are going to much rather have people who are AI augmented than people who aren't. So
Yeah.
everybody has every opportunity right now, because this is such a fresh industry as far as workplace is concerned, that actually there's nobody who's sitting there going, I'm the AI expert. And because of the nature of AI, it's not that way inclined. Actually, everybody can empower themselves with knowledge now. There's resource available on YouTube. There's resource available on Google. There's, all social media platforms have got things on there. There's an abundance of opportunity for people to self teach themselves, or organizations to be positive in their leading as far as sharing knowledge. So
Like it.
my kind of takeaway is, start somewhere, start educating your people, start bringing in organizations that can do lunch and learns, or come in and do executive briefings, or come in and do sessions with you to share knowledge so that you can share that with your team.
I saw a client do a really cool thing just quickly the other day, and they said to all their employees, "What are the three things that really frustrate you about your job and your role?" And what they did was they took those three things and went, right, what are the AI solutions that will address those? Because if you can
Mm.
take the pain away from colleagues and they feel the benefit really quickly, then they're going to be more open. Because you're right. I mean, at the end of the day, it's about mindset, isn't it? And getting people with that open mindset. And they got
And
one
people,
final.
just to close on that, at this moment in time, people don't know what they don't know.
Yeah.
So you can't walk in somewhere and go, I've got this AI thing, tell me what your problem is, because they don't know what it can do. So they can't go, actually, my problem is this, so how can we fix it? So I think there's an element of kind of pulling the layers of the onion away, and each layer of the onion you pull away is by empowering them with a bit more knowledge. And so
Yeah.
as you pull more away, you'll get to where the crux of challenges are. But trying to go in there with all the layers on the onions with people who have no knowledge the gap is too far.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. And that client wasn't going in saying your problems related to AI. They went and tell us your problems.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
like a
yeah.
really simple example is one of them when it's taken us ages to do proposals, which was
Right,
the point that you
right.
made earlier.
Yeah.
And the client went, right, this is how AI can help you speed up doing your proposals. So it's those kind of things, and particularly for an estate agency business, as an
Yeah.
example, where you are producing proposals that go out to clients 6-7 times a day. If you can automate that, then suddenly you can save yourself 2 hours a day. So
Yeah.
that's where it's exciting. Andy, just conscious of time, one final question for you. The societal impact. There's some scary stats out there. For example, 20 to 50% of current roles within the next 5 to 20 years will be replaced
Yeah.
with AI. That could create a massive societal problem in terms of redundancies and so forth. And a lot of businesses are conscious more than ever about their ESG. Just briefly, I know this could be a whole subject in itself. The potential of AI to really help you enhance your social impact. What's your thoughts on that one?
Um, I think those stats are probably fair, and I think if we look at any industrial transformation that's happened over the years, it's a consequence of change. Um,
Yeah,
but it's how you adapt to change, and how you can either sit and watch change happen and be a victim of it, or you can say, actually, Well, no, it's in our gift to change that. We can see whether it's agriculture with the introduction of tractors, the industrial revolution with the introduction of steam, the modern age with the introduction of computers. Yes, jobs in their nature will go, but they will be replaced with augmented AI enabled people. So I think as a society, we can sit there and watch this happen to us, or we can take the reins and actually lead ourselves to embrace it. And I think a lot of that responsibility comes to ourselves, in that we can bury our heads in the sand and think this isn't happening, or we can actually say, even as an employee in a business, I could look around and go, okay, my business isn't doing anything yet, so maybe I could do something. I can take responsibility for my own actions and go and learn something. Maybe I
Nice.
can do something here. And maybe I can present back to the business to say, oh, had you thought about this? Take the initiative. And I think that the world will be, the world and AI is a conversation for another day. That's, one of those philosophical questions as to the impact that AI will have on society as a whole. However, looking at it through positive mindset is that actually the world will become, a different place to what it is today, in the same way that we've seen with other significant changes in society. And hindsight will show whether that is a good thing or a bad thing. But clearly, if we've got more people on this planet, if we can be more productive and efficient with what we do, then that will have a better outcome for everyone.
Love it. And my key takeaway from today that I'm taking, which is a lovely phrase that you just used there, is augmented AI enabled people. And I think if you had that as a strapline about what you're trying to achieve through AI, then hopefully your people will recognize it's not about replacing them. It's allowing them to do what they can do as human beings, do more of it, and use the AI to do the more menial stuff that enables them to do more of living their passion every single day. So augmented AI enabled people is my key takeaway. Andy, thank you so much. I'm sure there's real golden nuggets, and hopefully for the business leaders and people listening today, you have enough now to really think about this is not a fad, it is the future. AI is here to stay. It's about increasing your relevance as a business and relevance as a leader and relevance as a team to really embrace it, and how you build a culture that is aligned with augmented AI enabled people to really set you up for success. So, Andy, if people want to get hold of you and talk to you more about AI, where can they get hold of you?
So they can go to my LinkedIn profile, because that is it's set up good. So you can DM me on that. You can go to our website, which is askholly.com. That's askholly with an IE at the end.com. Or you can email me at andy@askholly.com. And really what we do is we focus on the people side of it, the advisory side. One area we've not covered at all, which is again topic for another day, is AI regulation that is coming down the road in the next 2 years. A significant reason to be considering AI as well. And then also we do AI automation, so we can work with AI development within your organization as well.
Brilliant. As always, from the life of a business leader, practical golden nuggets you'll be able to take away from Andy and I. Hope you got some value from this episode, and we look forward to being on the next episode of Life of a Business Leader and sharing more golden nuggets with you. From me, Royston Guest, bye for now.